Hey everyone, Timbermaster here, and in today's video we're going to be going over the PE diet. We're going to talk about exactly what the PE diet is. We're going to go over some bad PE foods, some good PE foods. I'm going to put together an example of what's supposed to be a healthy standard American diet meal plan for a day. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to put together a really healthy, really effective meal plan for a day, all using the PE diet so you can crush your weight loss goals and feel really good while you're doing it. Okay, so what is the PE diet? Well, Dr. Ted Naiman is the author of the book called PE Diet, and to be honest, his ideas are just really good. They make a lot of sense. They're really effective and they just flat out work. Now, if you haven't watched my previous video on the PE diet, you can check it out right there. And it's just going to give you a lot of really good background information so you can better understand everything that we talk about right here. But to give you a quick breakdown, we in the United States are facing some big challenges right now. We're bigger than ever, and because of our diets, we're seeing some really bad metabolic dysfunction. And when it comes to our food, we're typically not consuming enough protein, but we tend to overconsume energy, particularly sugar, refined carbs, and refined fats. And this is why we have this issue of just storing too much fat. And to further break this down, we get fat in a few different ways. First, when we eat too many carbs, we experience something called de novo lipogenesis, and those excess carbohydrates that we've consumed get converted into energy, which are then stored as fat in our adipocytes. Second, if we're eating way too much fat, then we're going to be seeing more triglyceride uptake in our adipocytes or fat cells, especially if we are eating way too many carbs and fats together. And then lastly, circling back to our overconsumption of carbohydrates, when we do this, we're going to see an effect on insulin inhibiting lipolysis. So that essentially just means we're preventing ourselves from burning fat. Now, in order to combat some of these issues, we can introduce the PE diet, and Dr. Naiman suggests that we do a few basic things. First, what we want to do is increase our protein consumption because protein is really nutrient dense, and we also have a very high protein satiety drive, meaning that we essentially just eat food until we've met our protein requirements. And then protein is also the most filling and satiating macronutrient. And then lastly, from a fundamental perspective, protein is essentially just the building blocks of so many parts of our body, and it's so important for us to consume adequate amounts. Now, the second thing that we want to do is when we're consuming energy, so carbs and fats, well, we essentially just want to, at a maximum, consume equal amounts of energy as protein. And the third thing that we want to do is really try to control our carbohydrate consumption, because we know that when we eat a lot of carbohydrates, we're going to be seeing rises in insulin, and that is going to prevent us from burning fat while simultaneously putting us in a fat storage state. Now, when putting this all together, remember your consumed grams of protein should be greater or equal to your consumed grams of energy, so your carbs and your fat. And that ratio should be about 1-to-1 or greater. And when it comes to determining how much you should be eating, Dr. Naiman suggests that your consumed grams of protein should equal your ideal body weight in pounds, which also means that your consumed grams of energy, so the carbs and the fats, should also equal your ideal weight in pounds. So for example, if you want to weigh 140 pounds, you can start by consuming about 140 grams of protein, and then you can also have 140 grams or less of carbs plus fat. And remember, if you have a few less carbs and fat, then your PE ratio is going to be a little bit more favorable. Now, before we talk about the bad PE foods and the good PE foods, we got to talk about Dr. Naiman's PE calculator on his website, burnfatnotsugar.com. So quickly, when using the PE calculator, we want to try to accomplish a few different things. Remember, we want our PE ratio to be greater or equal to 1, so this line right here. And any food or meals above that PE equals 1 line is going to be ideal for weight loss, while conversely, anything below that PE equals 1 is going to be detrimental to your weight loss and may actually cause weight gain. Seems pretty easy, right? And lastly, for the sake of simplicity and consistency for all of the food that I chose for the remainder of this video, I just pulled all of the macros and the nutrition info from MyFitnessPal. Oh, and when it comes to all the numbers that we're gonna be looking at, we're gonna be focusing on protein, carbs, fat, and fiber, because with the PE diet, we wanna be looking at net grams of carbohydrates. Now let's talk about some bad PE foods. Pizza. So with 1 slice of pizza, if we're looking at a pizza that's cut into 6 equal slices, we are looking at, with that 1 slice, 15 grams of protein, 38 grams of carbohydrates, and 12 grams of fat. And then lastly, we have 2 grams of fiber, coming out to a final PE ratio of 0.31. And if you take a look at our PE calculator, we are well below our goal of our protein to energy equaling 1. Moving on to avocado toast. Now with avocado toast, we're looking at 1 slice. However, it's probably closer to 1 slice of bread and about 1 whole avocado. So we are seeing 6 grams of protein, 27 grams of carbs, 21 grams of fat, and 8 grams of fiber, with a total PE of 0.15. Next, we have a Luna protein bar. So with this protein bar, we're looking at 12 grams of protein, 22 grams of carbs, 5 grams of fat, and 3 grams of fiber, with a total PE ratio of 0.5. Now we have good old-fashioned whole wheat bread. So with 1 slice of bread, we have 4 grams of protein, 18 grams of carbs, 1 gram of fat, 2 grams of fiber, and that comes out to a total PE ratio of 0.24. Next, we have spaghetti with meatballs. So with 1 cup of spaghetti meatballs, we're looking at 50 grams of protein, 98 grams of carbs, 36 grams of fat, 9 grams of fiber, coming out to a total PE ratio of 0.4. Okay, shifting gears over to some alcoholic beverages. So why don't we look at some wine? So with wine, we have 0 grams of protein, we have 5 grams of carbohydrates, we have 0 grams of fat and fiber, and our total PE ratio is just gonna be 0. Now, wine also has alcohol in it, which is mostly metabolized in the liver and the brain and really contributes a lot to weight gain. So it appears that if you're doing your daily glass of wine or even binging on the weekend, you're gonna be running into some bumps in the road with your weight loss goals. Now, before we start talking about all the good PE foods, if you feel like you have a pretty good understanding of everything that you shouldn't really be eating on the PE diet, go ahead and hit that like button. Also, comment down below if you have any specific questions on certain foods or meals, and I will be happy to get back to you as soon as possible. Now we can start talking about some examples of some good PE foods. And remember, we want to have our PE ratio be equal or greater than 1. So let's kick it off with some 85-15 ground beef. So with about a 4-ounce patty of ground beef, we are looking at 21 grams of protein, 0 grams of carbs, and 17 grams of fat, 0 grams of fiber, with a PE ratio of 1.24. Now we're going to be looking at organic chicken breast. So with 3 ounces of chicken breast, we're going to be seeing 24 grams of protein, 0 grams of carbs, 1 gram of fat, 0 grams of fiber, with a total PE ratio that is off the charts, but it is technically 24. Moving on to some wild-caught sockeye salmon. With 3 ounces of this salmon, we're seeing 25 grams of protein, 0 grams of carbs, 8 grams of fat, 0 grams of fiber, with a PE ratio of 3.1. Now we have some grass-fed flap sirloin. So with this piece of steak that's 4 ounces, we are seeing 23 grams of protein, 0 grams of carbs, 12 grams of fat, 0 grams of fiber, and that PE ratio is equal to 1.92. And then lastly, we have pasture-raised eggs. So with one egg, we are seeing 6 grams of protein, 0 grams of carbohydrates, 5 grams of fat, 0 grams of fiber, for a final PE ratio of 1.2, which is exactly where you want to be. Now, I know you're probably thinking about fruits and veggies right now, so let's go over that really quickly. So we know that fruits and veggies are going to be low in protein and fat and higher in carbohydrates, so we can kind of assume that their PE ratios are going to be less than 1. But here's the thing, veggies and some low sugar fruits are going to be great for you because they're going to provide you with a ton of phytonutrients and antioxidants, and they're going to keep you full for a really long time. And remember, the goal with every nutrition plan should be sustainability. So if you are able to eat the food that is going to keep you the fullest longest, then you're really not going to be thinking about food quite as much, and you're going to be seeing a lot less cravings. So if you're going to be combining some of these nutrient dense and filling veggies and low sugar fruits with some also nutrient dense and satiating meats and proteins, then you're going to be seeing some really great benefits. Now we can go over a meal plan that follows the standard American diet that's supposed to be healthy and help you lose weight, but actually probably isn't doing that at all. So this diet actually seems pretty well balanced on paper, and getting into the specifics of it, we are going to be eating about 6 servings of grains, 5.5 ounces of meat, 5 servings of vegetables, 4 servings of fruit, 3 servings of dairy, 3 servings of fats and oils, and then about 1 serving of nuts and seeds. We're also going to be having 3 meals per day, and snacking is okay as well. Oh, and I forgot to mention that fruit juice is actually okay as a replacement for actual fruit. Now, based off of this information, this is what our meals are going to be looking like for a single day. So for breakfast, we are going to be having 2 slices of bread, 1 cup of milk, 1 cup of orange juice, 1 egg, and then a little bit of vegetable oil to cook that egg in. And with that, we're going to be seeing 22 grams of protein, 59 grams of carbohydrates, 16 grams of fat, 2 grams of fiber, with a total PE ratio of 0.3. For lunch, we're going to be having a chicken salad with about 2.5 ounces of mixed greens, 3 ounces of chicken, and about 2 tablespoons of salad dressing. We're also going to be having 2 slices of bread, 1 cup of milk, and then 1 cup of blueberries. And this comes out to being 39 grams of protein, 68 grams of carbohydrates, 15 grams of fat, 8.5 grams of fiber, with a total PE of 0.49. And for our afternoon snack, well, we're gonna be having a little bit less than 1 ounce of almonds and 1 cup of orange juice. And with this afternoon snack, we're getting 6 grams of protein, 30 grams of carbohydrates, 10 grams of fat, 2 grams of fiber, with a total PE of 0.16. And finally, for dinner, we're gonna be having a salmon salad where we're gonna have 2.5 ounces of mixed greens, 1.3 ounces of salmon. That's gonna be cooked in about 2 teaspoons of vegetable oil. We're also gonna have about 2 tablespoons of salad dressing on there. And then we're gonna have another 2 slices of bread and 1 cup of milk. So for dinner, that's 25 grams of protein, 46 grams of carbohydrates, 23 grams of fat, 4.5 grams of fiber, and we're gonna have a PE ratio of 0.39. Now, coming from a caloric perspective, from everything that we've eaten for this day, we have consumed 1,724 calories. 21% of those calories are coming from protein, 46% is coming from carbohydrates, 33% is coming from fat. But what is our aggregate PE ratio for the day? Well, that number is gonna be 0.37. Now with this approach to nutrition and this PE ratio, it's going to be very, very difficult to lose weight. In fact, with this type of nutrition plan, we're most likely going to be experiencing some metabolic dysfunction and ultimately gaining weight. We're just seeing way too much carbohydrate intake, both sugar and refined carbohydrates. We're eating too much refined fats. We're not eating enough protein, and this is just going to be a huge, huge disaster when it comes to our weight loss goals. Now, let's go over a healthy and effective version of the PE diet, and we can actually use that 140-pound weight loss goal example that we talked about previously. So if we are looking to lose weight and we want to weigh 140 pounds, this is what we are going to do. First, we're going to be controlling our carbohydrate consumption, and we're actually going to be consuming less than 50 grams a day. And this is going to be really beneficial because it's going to naturally lower our insulin levels, which means we're going to be able to burn fat. We're also going to be prioritizing protein consumption because it's extremely nutrient dense. We have a high protein satiety drive, and it's really, really filling. Another thing that we'll do is eat a lot of vegetables because they're going to be lower in carbohydrates than fruit, and they're really filling just like protein. And lastly, we're going to be intermittent fasting, only having 2 meals and no snacks at all. So getting into the specifics, we are going to have no grains, we're going to have no dairy, we're going to have no nuts or seeds. We are going to be consuming vegetables, so about 12 ounces of vegetables, a lot of meat, and then we're going to be cooking and prepping our food with some oils and some butters, and then we might have just a little bit of fruit. Now our first meal is going to be lunch, and we're going to be having a chicken salad with 5 cups of mixed greens, 3 ounces of chicken, and then about a tablespoon of olive oil. We're also going to be having 4 eggs that will be cooked with about a half a tablespoon of butter. And with this first meal, we're going to be having 59 grams of protein, 16 grams of carbohydrates, 40 grams of fat, and 5 grams of fiber, with a final PE ratio of 1.15. Now for dinner, we're going to be having 7 ounces of broccoli, 9 ounces of sockeye salmon. We're going to have 3 tablespoons of butter to be cooked with both the salmon and the broccoli. And then we're going to finish off the meal with about a half a cup of raspberries. Now for this meal right here, we're looking at 82 grams of protein, 20 grams of carbohydrates, 58 grams of fat, and 12.5 grams of fiber, with a total PE ratio of 1.25. Now coming from a caloric perspective, with everything that we have eaten today, we have consumed 1,574 calories. 36% have come from protein, 55% come from fat, and 9% come from carbohydrates. But what is our aggregate PE ratio for the day? Well, the grand total PE ratio for the day is going to be 1.21, which is great. Now the PE diet is just going to be so much better than the standard American diet. And I would say that the most important part of this entire nutrition plan is that you're going to be improving your metabolic function, which is going to improve insulin sensitivity, and you're going to be able to burn fat really effectively and lose weight and feel great while you're doing it. Now, I highly encourage you to learn more about the PE diet. You can do that by watching some of Dr. Ted Naiman's videos here on YouTube, and then you can also check out his book. I have an affiliate link in the description below. Now, if you like this video and you want to learn more about really effective weight loss strategies while becoming healthier, go ahead and subscribe to the channel down below and watch this video right here if you want to learn even more about the basics and the fundamentals of the PE diet, where I go over all of the fine details and the ins and outs of it. All right, thanks so much for checking out this video, and I will see you soon.